What's going on, guys? You might recognize this voice. Staff Sergeant Michael Grove here, founder of Pennsylvania State Militia. Years after, I guess, our heyday, we started back in 2013. That was sort of our developmental time. We formalized in 2014, and then we basically became the best militia organization this state has ever seen, and ran it very professionally for about 6 years. I'd say we kind of started to peter out in 2019. But what I'd like to do is kind of bring us back to the beginning and kind of go all the way through, and then at the end of this, kind of describe what happened to us. And the reason I'm making this video is because I actually went, every once in a while, guys, I go back to our old YouTube channel and I watch our documentary and I see the guys, and, and that was in our heyday. I'll link the video below so you can see what I'm talking about. And if you're watching this, you probably know about that. So there was actually a couple of times we were covered on the news, and what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to put links to the documentary that we were in, the news coverage that we had, maybe one or two articles if I can dig them up when we were in the newspapers, and some other stuff. Kind of a collage of the stuff we used to get up to. But yeah, guys, back in 2013, actually it was back in 2012. At that time I was a security contractor, armed security, and I remember going to work when I was also in the Navy Reserve. I was a master at arms, and I remember going into work one day and I heard about the shooting in Sandy Hook. A bunch of kids were killed in a classroom, and a couple of weeks after that I heard about the and I'm not sure which one I heard first. I kind of forget at this point, but I also heard about the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting, and I want to say that was in 2013, maybe 2012. I can't really remember, guys, but I was 22 years old, 23 years old, somewhere around there. And man, when you're that young, you're well, most people anyway, I guess, I don't know, I guess it's not very common, but you're freaking driven, man. You have goals, you have ideals, you're young, and now I'm 33, and life is different now. So this was about 10, 11 years ago. And so anyway, I have those stories fresh in my mind, and about a year before that, what's it called? The Bundy Ranch situation happened out in Nevada, and that was basically the Bureau of Land Management stole the Bundy family's cattle and whatnot, and started getting real heavy-handed out there and using a lot of excessive force, and shit just got nuts, and basically all the cowboys rallied up, and more or less made a huge armed presence, protest sort of a thing, and had the government back down. I thought it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in the way of patriotism, because it was just the presence of patriots coming together that was able to correct a tyrannical government. Not one shot was fired, although it got close. If you're familiar with that situation, guys, it really did come close. And to be honest, I made this channel to kind of answer questions and maybe even advise other groups if they were planning on starting in like a militia type organization, mutual assistance organization or whatever. Any questions that come out of this video, I will be following up on and addressing and whatnot. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. But I was 22, 23 years old, and So I saw the Bundy Ranch go down, and I was kind of big into Alex Jones at the time, and he was covering a lot of the anti-gun stuff that was happening, and so I heard about the Aurora, Colorado movie theater shooting and the Sandy Hook shooting and all this anti-gun shit, and then of course Alex Jones is going on and on about that, and I started getting real deep into like, holy shit, dude, like I'm first of all, I'm very socially liberal. I don't care if somebody's gay. I don't care if somebody wants to transition. I don't care if somebody does drugs. It doesn't matter to me personally. Like I don't care what you do in your personal life as long as what you are doing does not infringe upon the rights of others. I don't care. The only thing I'm actually conservative about, and I've been like this for my entire life, the only thing that I'm conservative about, guys, is the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, the Second Amendment. And it's not because that those are conservative values. I mean, I guess they are, but it's not because, like, you know, the right to own a gun is for Bubba in his cabin. The right to own a gun is only for Republicans. Nah, dude, those rights are for everybody, and that's one thing that liberals should understand. The Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, those rights are for everybody. The single mother growing up in the ghetto of Detroit should have every right to be able to own a firearm to defend her children, from the gang bangers outside and whatever. She should have every right to go get training and to have a standard capacity magazine, 16, 17 rounds, whatever. Nobody should be limited to this 10-round Safe Bill Act bullshit, because that's not doing much to keep the good people safe, because, of course, we all know, the bad guys don't follow laws. So creating more laws is only hindering the law-abiding citizens, and the law-abiding citizens are not the criminals that you're trying to, control or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? And you're going to have to excuse my language, because I'm keeping it real with you, I'm not going to pull any punches here, and I'm going to be honest with you guys. So anyway, I hear all this anti-gun stuff going on, and I see people protesting being treated by even police, unfairly, and I was thinking, man, somebody's got to do something about this. I'm not seeing anybody do anything. At that time, nobody was standing up, nobody was doing anything, nobody was taking the initiative to get anything done. Everywhere I looked, it was, and everybody I tried talking to about it, nobody understood. And I'm like, fuck, man, it seems like it's just me and Alex Jones who understand this shit. So obviously I was in a very precarious situation. And at that point, what's his name? It was a police chief out of, I forget where. Let's see if I can remember his name. Mark Kessler, put this video out about, I guess he had an automatic AK and some other automatic weapons, and he was firing them off in like what seemed to be like the silt lands. And he's like, the ATF comes to my door, blah, 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 I'm going to start shooting and all this. And, and that was my first exposure to, police, constitutional law enforcement, standing up and being accounted for. And nowadays, thank God, there's a lot more of them. They have a different approach to it than Mark, but it's nice to see that it's refreshing now. And not only that, but I bumped into this organization known as Oath Keepers as well. And Oath Keepers got really big right after the Bundy Ranch standoff in Nevada in 2012, I think it was. So, I'm starting to kind of go down this rabbit hole of, somebody ought to do something. And then I'm seeing guys here and there that are standing up, and I'm like, fuck yeah, man, awesome. And at that point, guys, like, I mean, I've been around guns my entire life. I shot my first rifle when I was 7 years old. And to me, like, firearms were important, and civil liberties were important, and constitutional rights were important. And, at that time I was basically fresh out of A school. I graduated top gun of my class, when it came to weapons and tactics and all that sort of shit. And I've been a lifeguard and, working security, my young adult life. And then I made my way into security contracting, and then I joined the Navy and became a master at arms. And I was at the top of my game back then, guys. I mean, dude, back in those days, I mean, all you vets know, you get out of boot camp, you go to your technical school, whatever. You could run, fuck, man, you could run for a week. It didn't matter. Like running became like walking at that point. You could just move. You could do 1,000 push-ups. Like you're invincible. And so that's kind of the way I saw myself. I'm like, man, I'm a physical, I'm a real good shape. I got all this training and tactics, and I knew a lot about like civilian law when it came to self-defense, and things weren't like they are today. And I was like, I have this wealth of knowledge that your typical person around doesn't have. Your typical person walking up and down the street with their head in their phone, they don't have those sort of skills. And there's a lot of people out there that, could certainly benefit. So I was like, man, I got to find an organization where I can download my skills somewhere, because I actually joined the Navy. I got talked into the reserves, but I actually joined the Navy because I wanted to get involved in anti-pirate operations. I wanted to be the dude, either in a helicopter or on a boat, just freaking, just ripping off a belt at some drug boat, or, shooting some fucking pirates who tried taking hostages or whatever. And, and that sort of thing does exist. You don't have to be a Navy SEAL to be all up in that, but, those billets are slim, and I didn't know any of that back then. I just wanted to be a master at arms because, you get to do a lot with weapons, and you get to board ships, and if you get the right command, that is. Of course, my recruiter didn't tell me any of that. I should have been a gunner's mate. I would have probably had a much easier time. But anyway, guys, that's what I wanted to do. So anyway, sharpened weapon. The Navy trained me up real good, turned me into a freaking weapon. And then as soon as I got to my reserve command, man, they cut my claws off. They blunted my teeth, and they sat me on a shelf to rot and get dusty. And man, I was a little disgruntled, to be honest. And then Obama was president at the time, and he couldn't say shit about that because he was the commander in chief and blah blah blah. Like it just seemed like my position at the time, I couldn't talk to anybody about the way I felt, because every time that I would open my mouth up a little bit, I was just shut down every time. And I'm like, man, I'm gonna go fucking nuts, dude. I gotta do something with my skills. So I started, I heard about the Constitutional Defense Force that Mark Kessler started. And I tried contacting people involved in that. I never heard anything back. And then I found the Lightfoot Militia on Facebook, and websites. So I started contacting them at that time. Again, this is all 2012, 2013, maybe 2012, maybe very, very early 2013. And, I put it out there. I'm like, hey, here's my resume. This is the stuff that I can do. I'm an asset at this point. I'm not a liability. Like I could sit there quietly until I earn some trust, and, maybe then be put into a, teaching position, or, something, anyway. Yeah, I never heard back from those guys or anything like that. So I'm like, God damn it. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it, dude. I'm going to start my own. I'm going to start my own group. And so I was playing around with that idea for a little bit. And again, I felt alone, I'm like, I'm not hearing back from these organizations. I can't do what I wanted to do in the military. I'm like, I'm gung-ho, man. I'm ready to freaking go. I can't find anybody who understands, where I'm at. And so, I kind of floated around for a little bit, kind of lost. And I just remember one day I was driving through Scranton, and I went on this bridge. And this bridge is called I forget the name of the bridge. But anyway, it's right by where Newswatch 16 is, and it's over the highway on 81 South and North in Scranton. Basically, I think it's the Snow Mountain. At the time, it was Montage Mountain exit. slash on ramp. And so anyway, I saw these like three ladies that they had Gadsden flags and like the Don't Tread on Me flags and American flags and Betsy Ross flags, and I was like, yo, those are the flags that my people wave, you know? So I was like, and then I saw this cop car sitting maybe a block away. And at the time I was like, man, I'm big into civil liberties. Master at arms, that's basically military police in the Navy. So I was like, dude, I am a police officer. I am a constitutional law enforcement minded dude. And if this fucking cop is going to go there and try and violate their rights, man, I'm going to be right there to set them straight. 23 years old, idealistic. And so, you know, I pull up to these ladies and I hop out, and there was like a barrier, and I hopped over that. 23 years old, super fit, no problem. Zoop right over like a kangaroo. And I say that because now I can't do that now. But so I hop over there and I'm like, hi, how are you guys? I said, I'm Michael Grove. You know, I just made the decision about a week ago that I'm going to start the best damn militia that this state has ever seen. And I did that. Fast forward a couple years, I did that shit. But I knew it right then and there, and I was like, hey, like, I don't know who you guys are, but you're the first people I've ever seen in real life that are waving my people's flag. You know, obviously you're patriots and whatever. So I'm like, and they started telling me about how they were an organization called Overpasses for America. And Overpasses for America is kind of at that time, it was a nationwide sort of thing. And what they would do is they would take pro-American stances on stuff, and they'd go on overpasses, basically any kind of bridge over a highway, and they would wave flags and hold signs, you know, and like, you know, secure borders. I'm trying to think of what else was big back then. It was just 10 years ago, guys. I could barely even remember. But just pro-American shit, you know, stuff that any American should be proud of. And so they were all over the country doing that, but it's the Scranton branch, man. Oh my God, dude. I teamed up with them. They were the First Amendment, and I was the Second Amendment, and together we had a mission, you know. I got on Facebook, I got on YouTube. I put the word out there. I marketed as best I could, you know. I started getting local guys involved in the militia organization, and then once a month we would team up with Overpasses for America, and then, you know, together, you know, we would provide security and overwatch and, you know, medical, because we'd get a lot of firefighters and EMTs involved, and, you know, some police officers, and towards the end we had Pennsylvania State police officers involved and whatnot, and we got a lot of constitutionally minded law enforcement and emergency response personnel. We had doctors, we had a lawyer. We had very professional folks towards the end, and we also had, you know, your blue collar guys too. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we had people from all walks of life because of how we carried ourselves. We had computer techs, we had, you know, ER nurses, we had mechanics, we had truck drivers, we had dudes who work at gas stations, like you name it, man. We had everything. But so we got out there, you know, every month we would do our thing, and we would recruit. We'd hold recruiting at the overpasses events. We've had, you know, we would have people come to try and give us like either to start a debate or to cause problems, but we would mediate that. You know, we would be kind of the buffer between the police and the demonstrators. I don't want to say protesters because it wasn't really a protest. It was more of just like assembly and, you know, doing the flag thing and whatnot. But yeah, we would meet people there. We'd you know, communicate. We'd you know, do recruitings, and actually one of the where we used to do a lot of recruiting was the Weiss Market in Nanticoke, Pennsylvania, in the back of the parking lot there. We did a lot of recruiting there. Probably recruited about 100 members from that, maybe 50, about 50 members from that spot. Then we moved it somewhere else, but I won't say where. But it was cool, man. we started building our numbers. We didn't really, and then at that point we were looking for land sponsors to, actually do some training somewhere, and to actually start like room clearing, building clearing, tactics, field patrols, reaction to combat, medical, first aid. I must have certified about 100 people in first aid. Not 100, maybe 50. People in first aid, actually got them first aid, CPR, AED certifications that they could use for other lines of work, like to be a security guard or a lifeguard, or stuff like that. So that was kind of cool. That was pretty legit. So we kind of started doing that, and then we met up with this group out in, well, what kicked all that off was, at first we were basically just kind of, we were doing the Overpasses for America thing, but we weren't really training yet. And so what kicked our training off is we met up with a group in central Pennsylvania. I forget exactly where, but they were called PEMSOC, Pennsylvania Emergency Special Operations Command. And it was run by this ex-Marine and another guy who said he was a Green Beret. I don't know if he was. Maybe he was. I don't know. So I'm not going to take that away from him. I just don't know if that was true or not. But the other guy was definitely an ex-Marine. And so anyway, we went out there and met the dudes there, and they seemed more squared away than we were at the time, in northeastern Pennsylvania. And so I was like, fuck, man, like we gotta move. So basically what we did is, we did some patrolling, we did some room clearing, we did some shooting, we did a little bit of team movement and whatnot. And I was like, hell yeah, man, that's the type of shit I need to take back to our command and get that rolling. So that's when we started looking for land sponsors. And we were able to find 2 people kind of right off the bat as soon as we started asking. I'm trying to think here. One was in, well, let's just say they were both kind of in northeastern Pennsylvania. I don't want to be any more specific than that. So we held our first training at the one place, and we basically did all the same stuff. We got the room clearing in, we got the formations, patrols, and it was very basic at that time. But nevertheless, we got dudes in gear and in camo and all this shit, and started doing patrols and kind of doing turning into like a cool militia and whatnot. And then, because at first we're just looking for bodies, man. Like, hey, if you have a gun, period, you're in. There's no other requirements. If you have a gun, you're in. And, clearly like you're not a felon or prohibited person, that sort of thing. And the reason for that, guys, is because we had to, we didn't want to, I saw a lot of unsteady stuff with other groups. And I'm not going to name any of them, but there were some that were letting in felons, and there were some that were just they couldn't control themselves. Like, they were just too extreme, And I mean, if you've paid attention to us throughout the years, like, we were kind of moderates. We're like kind of in the middle. Like, we're like, listen, one of the questions that I used to ask the guys towards the end is like, all right, if there's a BLM protester and they're being peaceful, what's your opinion on that? And some guys would say, like, burn them all to hell. And it's like, okay, well, we don't want you, because you are not understanding that as a patriot, as an American patriot, part of being an American patriot is recognizing American fundamentals. And, part of American fundamentals are recognizing that everybody's protected by the Bill of Rights. And the inside of the Bill of Rights, there's a First Amendment that protects you, press, assembly, religion, speech, petition to address the right to petition your government with address of grievances. So there's all that. So, protest, assemble, all that sort of shit. As long as it's peaceful, like, your duty is to protect those rights for everybody, not just you and the people that you agree with. Everybody, even if you disagree with them, you still have to uphold that, because if you start pulling this whole like, oh, I'm not going to protect them because I don't agree with what they say, well, you're just as bad as the other fucking assholes that are encroaching on us, you know? So anyway, there was, so there were groups like that, obviously. And, I would see that and I'm like, we don't want those types, we want level-headed dudes. I want the quiet professional who's modest but knows his shit. And we want humble dudes that want to learn and want to train and want to, become assets to their community instead of liabilities. Like, so that was our big thing. And so at first it was like, hey, you got a break barrel single shot 10 gauge shotgun. All right, man, sign on up. And so after a while, we started doing that, and then we started getting, better caliber, I don't want to say better, but a higher caliber of folks. And so we grandfathered everybody in who was there from the beginning. But then we started to tighten up our requirements. So, at a certain point, our requirements were, you're going to, you got to make 1 day a month where you can train. Usually it was on Saturday or Sunday, 1 day a month. So that was mandatory training. And if you miss 3 of them, you're basically out, or you go to an auxiliary force where you can kind of train whenever, but you're going to pay a certain amount of dues. All right. So that was kind of our way of keeping guys in. But, if you're going to waste our time, you're going to pay up. You're going to help us. You're going to put in for the water that, we buy for our guys. You're going to, pay for, you're going to do $10 a month of whatever. So anyway, so basically our requirements morphed into overtime. This took a couple of months. This took probably about a year maybe. But our requirements became, you have to be 18 or older. If you're so you're got to be 18 or older. You have to have a means of transportation, because you have to come to our training once a month, and sometimes there were operations. So we had real world operations in Gettysburg and Philadelphia. I say Philly, but I can't remember. No, I don't think we were ever in Philly. Harrisburg, Gettysburg, Scranton a bunch of times with Overpasses for America. We basically went out there every month, on top of our training. So there were things here and there that, you were required to show up to, and or at least the majority of our forces were, it was like mandatory that you show up to. So again, transportation was big. So 18 years or older, means of transportation. You have to have at least a semi-automatic magazine-fed rifle. So it could be anything from an SKS to an M14, a Mini 14, an AR, an AK, FAL, rifles like that. No 22 rifles either, so they have to be like a real, and then people would be like, well, a 223 is a 22, and I'm like, no, a 223 is a 223. That's why it's not called a 22. You know what I mean? It's like it's a 5.56. Anyway, so you have to have that. If you're 21 and up, you have to have a concealed firearms license. If you're 18, the FV, you have to. I think it was you have to buy your rifle from an FFL. Yeah, you gotta buy your rifle from an FFL and provide a receipt or something like that. Basically, it was a way. Well, I'll get there in a sec. So the FFL, the rifle, being 18, having a car, if you're 21 and older, a concealed firearms license, and a pistol. So basically what that told us, guys, is the reason that we had those requirements is because we know that if you bought a rifle from an FFL, that means you had a state background check. If you bought a pistol from an FFL, that means you had a federal background check. And if you have a concealed firearms license, that means the county did at least a state background check on you. So by the time you got to us, even for vetting, you've already been background checked 3 times by state and federal. All right, so that's basically the reason for that. Because by the time we actually met you in person, we know that you're not a prohibited person. We know you're not a sex offender. We know you're not, and basically a person that we wouldn't want to deal with in the first place. And then we developed physical fitness standards. I think they weren't much. They were basically like I think they were 10 push-ups, 10 sit-ups, 10 squats, and being able to run 100 meters. I think that was it. And then after a while, I think they went up to 15 push-ups, 15 sit-ups, 15 squats, and maybe a 200-meter run. But basically, guys, all that was just to make sure that your body works. Because the thing is when you come to training and we do field operations, you're wearing kit, you're carrying rifles, you're moving around. And there's some people that like literally get up, go to work. They get up, they sit down on the toilet, they get up from the toilet, they sit down in their car, they get up from their car, they sit down at their desk, they get up from their desk, they sit down in their car again, they get up from their car, they sit down on their couch, and they get up again and they lay down in their bed, and the cycle repeats every single day. So you're not so it's like, listen, if you're not staying active, and then the one day a month where you get up off your ass, like we had people that were falling out of training, they'd walk 100 yards and then they couldn't move anymore. So we had one guy basically break his freaking leg while he was, not break his leg, but he hurt himself pretty bad while he was stretching. Big fat dude. So we're like, okay, we need physical standards because, people are getting hurt in our training because we're being irresponsible here and we're just letting anybody join, and we're doing the types of training that we're doing. So what we were trying to do is take out as much, what do you call it? There's a word I'm trying to, as much negligence as possible. So the background checks were like the legal negligence there. The physical fitness standards were that sort of negligence there. It's like, hey, they made it through all this. They showed us that their body can move. We're not just like putting everybody through this sort of thing. So we had the physical standards. We had the weapon standards. We had the, background check standards. So we had all that sort of shit. All right. So we were, and then the questioning was more of a psychological standard where, BLM protester behaving themselves. How do you think of them? Gay person, what I mean? Just kind of getting somebody's mindset. Cause yeah, we would talk to people, before we would let them in, and they'd be like, just fucking bigots of one sort or another. And it's like, no, we would recommend them to other organizations because we know that those other organizations were letting those types of people in. So we'd be like, okay, we'll contact this person here because this person here, because that organization is dumb as shit and they're just taking people like that. So, and that's why, so we did that for a couple of years, and that's kind of what developed our, our membership. That's what developed such a positive reputation with our organization. So it just kept, the ball just kept rolling. More momentum would build. We eventually put in rifle and pistol qualifications, and they were the same pistol qualifications that we were doing, that I was doing on my security contract. So I was running people through the same exact pistol qualification that a Federal Protective Service security agent would go through. Because at the time, I was a subcontractor with FPS as an armed security officer. And this was almost 10 years ago, so I don't give a shit if I talk about it now. But, that was my full-time job at the time, making great money, just protecting a level 4 government facility as a militia leader. So, interesting times. But anyway, so I was running them through that exact pistol qual. The rifle qualification, I think we got from, I think it was the Act 120, basically police officer rifle qualification at that time. And so, yeah, our guys were qualified, certified, competent with their pistols. So not only did they have background checks and a PT test that they had to go through, even though it was very minor, then they had a psychological vetting that they had to go through. Then they had pistol qualifications and rifle qualifications that they would have to, that they'd have to pass in order to, use their firearms on an operation that we would went to. So basically, we really tried wringing out all of the negligence that we possibly could. Um, you know, Bringing everybody through all these, um, what do you call it? I guess hurdles or whatever. So, we really made sure that our guys were squared away dudes. And, so we kept expanding and expanding and expanding. And then we got more training grounds and more training grounds. And then we made alliances with other groups. And we actually kind of set the way for other organizations to clean up their act. Because as time went by, we started noticing that other organizations that in the beginning, when I started PSM, Pennsylvania State Militia, when I started it, there was a lot of groups that were willy-nilly. Again, like I said before, they were just letting anybody in. And then I started noticing that they started cleaning up their act and kind of following suit. And, people from other states would message me, and back in the day when we had Facebook, they'd message the Facebook page and, basically let us know, like, hey, man, I'm in whatever state, and, we're basically copying what you guys did because you guys are the most squared away group that we've ever come in contact with anywhere in the country, And, so, excuse me. So anyway, I was proud of that. I was really proud of that because not only was I making a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of this free state, I was paving the way for other organizations to do the same thing. And it wasn't hard. It just took time, a lot of things may have been tedious, but, things just took time, and then, so anyway, as time went on, things were great. We'd have training every single month. Sometimes we'd have training twice a month. Not mandatory. We'd only have one mandatory training a month, but sometimes we'd have training twice a month. We'd have an operation with Overpasses for America, or maybe something else. Maybe we would go to Gettysburg or Harrisburg. One of the and one of the things, guys, that I do regret. I regret now, but it might have been the right call, is I did delete a lot of videos off of the Facebook page, or I'm sorry, the YouTube channel, the regular Pennsylvania State Militia YouTube channel. And the reason I did that is because at the time, well, I don't know if I want to get there yet. Basically, I'll touch on that later. But we would have training every month, sometimes twice a month, sometimes 3 times a month. Like, guys would just get together and do something. And it formed pretty good bonds. At that point, we're moving forward. We're a couple years in at this point. Guys had pretty good relationships with one another. It was a real good team environment. Guys would hang out during the week or whatever. They'd grab a beer. It became like a team. Like kind of like a brotherhood where dudes would just hang out with each other. If they live kind of close, they'd meet up, party, whatever, just hang out. And I started seeing that dynamic, and I'm like, dude, we have something greater than just a militia. I mean, these guys are, not only are they, in the same organization, training and whatnot, but they're hanging out with each other. They're getting to know each other's families. They're getting close, which is freaking awesome. It was almost like being, back in the military, like active duty. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see those relationships forming. And not only that, but because of our medical training, because of, other stuff that we would do every once in a while, guys would hit me up and they would take pictures and be like, yo, hey, I was out driving around today and I came across this, I saw this accident happen right in front of me, and me and so and so from team 2 like hopped out of our car, and I'm thinking, you guys are just hanging out. That's cool. Well, hey, we hopped out of the car, we ran over, we, put a bandage on the person, we called 911 and got EMS there and basically locked down the scene, had everything under control until, EMS arrived and police showed up, and we just did our duty and just kind of like held the scene down until they all got there, and then got the fuck out of their way and let them do their job. Like, and that was all of our training. That was all of our training, because every time we would have anything like medical use of force, anything like that, it was always geared to you control the scene in the moment, and then once the next level of care arrives, that's when you disarm, you back down, you get out of their way, you let them do their thing, you stick around, you answer all questions, you don't leave until they dismiss you, all that sort of stuff. And that all went right back to our training, and I would have guys hit me up. It seemed like every couple of months, like, hey, this happened, and you know, uh, I just reverted to the training that we got, and we would post on Facebook all the time, man. We would post on Facebook all the time the good deeds that our guys were out there doing. I think one year we did a food drive, and one year we did a toy drive, like a Toys for Tots sort of a thing. And we used to do like weird, not weird, but we used to do like good things here and there, and push that out for people to see on Facebook, And I used to personally, I used to do write ups. I used to, I'd have a write up like, hey, so and so, did XYZ, blah, 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 good deed done. And I would put that on Facebook, man. And I would spend like, I don't know, I think at the time it was like $1 or $5 to like boost that post. So like more people would see, like, Pennsylvania State Militia guys are out there doing good things for the community. They're helping people in need and this sort of thing. So anyway, yeah, man, we had a great reputation, man. At a certain point, we got to the point where, guys, we had over 20,000 followers on our Facebook page, right before it got taken down. We went to Washington, D.C., I think twice, for an anti-Antifa sort of patrol thing. Um, and I used to get my GoPro. I'd film all of our operations, and I would post those on Facebook and YouTube, and it was all good things. It was all real good things, but well, basically, guys, at a certain point, at the security thing that I was doing, at a certain point, I actually lost my job, and that's a funny story. I may or may not get into that in another video. At this point, I don't care too much, but I don't want to take away from the overall tone of this video. It wasn't anything crazy, but it is kind of funny to talk about. So anyway, so that happened, and then I'm trying to think of where I was heading. I got very derailed as soon as I said that. So yeah, everything was going freaking great. And then, so anyway, I got another job pretty soon after that. And then I had more time. I had much more time to throw into the militia thing. And then I started thinking, well, what's next, man? I made so much money doing this security contractor thing. Like, the hell am I going to do now, And, so that's what set me on the path of not just being a armed security guy back then. I was like, well, I got all this training. My Navy time's pretty much almost up. It was time for me to basically get out, and I was not going to re-up in the reserve because I just had enough. It was, this was years after, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm getting out. So I was like, I don't have the Navy anymore. I don't have my armed security job anymore. I was making ends meet doing something else. OnlyFans. Just joking. But yeah, I was making ends meet, whatever. And I was like, you know what? I got to get back into this like service line of work. So I'm going to go to the police academy. I'm going to become a police officer. And so, I started the PT test and the physical test and, the interviews and all that sort of shit and the letters of recommendation and all that sort of crap. And, because, again, the militia, nothing we ever did in the militia was illegal. As a matter of fact, we bent over backwards to make sure that we were following all the laws, all Pennsylvania law, to the point where even when we would go on operations and we would transport firearms, it's like, we dug into it so much that we realized that concealed firearms licenses do not cover rifles because they only cover quote unquote firearms, and firearms, excuse me, are defined as basically pistols only. So, and so we dug into that, and it's like, okay, well, when we transport our firearms, even though we have concealed firearms licenses, we can carry pistols, but we can't inside the state. And we have to transport our rifles legally. So we would separate the ammunition from the actual rifle itself and blah, blah, blah. So, we would do all that sort of thing. We would run convoys sometimes, or we wouldn't even speed. We'd stick on at the actual, speed limit. So we really did go out of our way to follow all of the laws. So nothing we ever did was illegal. Nothing we ever did was inciting any kind of violence, unless that violence is solely for the purpose of defending your life or the life of somebody else. And what an example of that is, punching somebody is a violent act. Well, if somebody's trying to harm you or harm a loved one of yours, and you have to defend yourself by punching that guy in the nose, well, then yes, we condone that level of violence, but that is only because that is in the course of defending yourself or somebody else. You know what I'm saying? So nothing, no criminal violence. Everything was geared towards breaking contact, getting out of the situation, calling 911, and handling everything that you need to handle. Cross your T's, dot your I's. So, anyway, I want to make that. I want to make that very clear because of what I'm about to say next. So, went through the background check and the police academy, and then I started the police academy, and that's when I started worrying about what people are going to think about the militia. And this is kind of where it started to end. This is kind of where it started. I don't want to say falling down, but this is when I started kind of backing off, because I think when I started the militia, it was about, I wanted to do something. I wanted to make a difference. I had this itch that I needed to scratch. I joined the Navy and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. I was working armed security, but I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Like, I wasn't fulfilled in reaching out to the community and making a difference, and being responsible for stuff and all this. But anyway, when I went to the academy, I was in the academy and I was constantly worried that they'd find out about me and I'd be kicked out, and then I'd be off to something else. I'd have to figure out something else to do with my life. And so I made it through the academy, no problem at all. And as a matter of fact, one day on the range, I had this one instructor, and I noticed that this one instructor had a 3%er patch on his hat. And I remember looking at him being like, oh, that's a good sign. I like that. And, camo hat with the flag, the American flag, and the 3%er with the stars around it where the stars were. And so I remember looking at that and being like, that's refreshing. It's a fucking academy instructor. That's cool. And then we're on the range and we're shooting, and I'm always a good shot. I always qualified expert, pistol, rifle, shotgun, not so much. I kind of hit or miss on that. But I always had great practicals, always had great shooting scores, and so we're at the pistol range, and we're shooting, we're blowing off rounds, and that instructor's behind me, and he comes up behind me and he goes, great shooting, Staff Sergeant. And my heart dropped, and all the blood came out, flowed out of my face, and I'm like, fuck. They know who I am. I'm done. And so later on, I'm thinking maybe he's not familiar with the chain of command in our class. So I go up to him later on. I said, sir, And it was just me and him. Nobody else was around. And I said, sir, do you know that we don't have staff sergeants in our chain of command? It's like we have a sergeant and then a lieutenant and then a captain. He's like, yeah, I know who you are. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, damn it, they do know. So I'm like, all right. And I kind of just left it at that. And, so I'm like, shit, they knew who I am. And I was worried for weeks that they were going to call me in and kick me out. And, so I never heard anything else about it till a couple weeks after I graduated. I found that instructor again. He was running another class through. And so I pulled him aside and I'm like, hey, I said, did the academy know who I was? And they were like, not at first, but they figured it out. Because, it was funny. There's militia training that police officers go is available to cops, like gangs and white supremacists and BLM and Antifa and blah, blah, blah. But in their militia block, they have pictures of me and Christian Yingling and a couple other guys in the Pennsylvania Patriot movement. And he's like, yeah, man, your face is he's like, your face is all over the place in those classes. And to this day, I mean, I've been a police officer for the last 4 years. I've never gone to those trainings because I don't want to be sitting there and have that come up and have everybody look at me and be like, are you that guy? Boy. Anyway, so yeah, I made it through the academy. They knew who I was. They did an investigation, but they pulled all sorts of records from what this instructor was telling me. And he's like, yeah, man, we looked into you. We pulled everything, but yeah, you only have a couple of speeding tickets. You've been, a couple of reports were written about you and your organization, but you've never done anything illegal. You've never, your group has never espoused any kind of hate for anybody. You're not a hate group. You're not a conspiracy group. You're just a dude who, he's like, if you just didn't call yourself a militia, you would be just like any other group out there. I mean, there's motorcycle clubs that police and firefighters are in. Even though there's outlaw motorcycle gangs, there's still motorcycle clubs. There's, martial arts schools that teach people how to fight and how to become assets instead of liabilities. That police officers and firefighters and all these sort of people attend. So he's like, it's literally just the same thing. It's just you're using the quote unquote M word, and that's kind of the buzzword that gets people curious, right? So I'm like, all right, yeah, no, that makes sense. And so I got with my department, and I won't say which one. I'll just say it's somewhere in Pennsylvania because I cannot talk about it. I can't give that info out. But yeah, I've been with my department now for going on 4.5 years, about to be 5. This summer it'll be 5 years, and they know about it and they've looked into it as well. And it's like, it's just, yeah, if you didn't use the M word, it'd be zero issue. M word is militia, by the way. And so going back to it, guys, that's the biggest reason that I regret taking down all those videos from the other YouTube channel, because all those videos were vindicating, and every time I've been looked into, those videos literally saved my ass, because they'd hear the militia word and they'd get a little okay, their ears would perk up, and then they'd watch those videos and then they'd see yeah, this dude, sure, his face is out there, but he's not, it's not there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing illegal about it. There's really no concern other than just the M word, So that was it. So basically, guys, I kind of feel like I deleted those videos for nothing, but the reason I deleted them was because I was worried that it would get me fired or it would ruin my career, and it really hasn't. It really hasn't ever been an issue in the academy. I've even gotten a job with the sheriff's department. I was there for a year. So I was a sheriff's deputy. I was a sheriff's deputy for a year, police officer for 4.5 years, going on 5 years. Made it through the police academy with no problem. So yeah, it's never been a problem. It's just, I think what happened, guys, is when I started PSM, I started it not to be a leader. I started it kind of reluctantly because I'm like, damn it, nobody else is doing anything. Somebody's got to do something. And nobody's doing anything. And I remember the boss I had at the time, he was pretty cool. And he's like, why does it have to be you? You ever think, like, why does it have to be you? Because he found out about it when I was working the armed security at the Federal Protective Building. And he's like, why does it have to be you? And I said, man, if everybody asked themselves that, there'd never be anybody to stand up to do anything good for, you know? So if everybody was like, why does it have to be me? Nobody would ever stand up. And I'm like, it's just, if somebody else was doing it, I wouldn't have to do it, you know? So yeah, I deleted those videos because I thought it would screw my career, and it did not. I wish I knew that it was actually helping my case. I wouldn't have deleted them at all, but, you know, I left up the PSM full story. I left up, I think it was pistol qualifications or whatever, because I didn't want to take that from the guys. You know, that was another thing. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet on this. You know, on these two videos, because I don't want to take that away from the dudes, because that would be me erasing everything that they've built also, because that story was not about me. It was about PSM. You know, so. And then, so when I started PSM, I started it, yes, because somebody had to do it, but really what I was doing the entire time is I was trying to find the right guys to plug into the right positions, so that if something ever happened to me, that they would be able to carry forth, you know. And I had business guys, I had martial arts guys, I had veterans with tactical experience, I had EMTs and paramedics for medical training and first aid training and all that sort of shit. I had instructors that can certify people in first aid and CPR and whatnot. I had NRA instructors that, you know, say what you will about NRA instructors, but bottom line, they were being trained by somebody who had a license or a certification to train other people, you know. And so it was a very legitimate training organization, is really what it was. And so anyway, I didn't want to take that away from the guys, and I had all these guys in the proper positions, and, you know, so when it got time to, when I started police work, it just became so overwhelming. You know, I was working, first of all, I was working weekends, so, you know, making training became very difficult. I would work like Friday night, Saturday night, and then we'd have training Sunday, and then I'd be working Sunday night. And I think I did that for like 2 months, and I was just like, man, I just can't frickin'. And not only that, guys, but I think the itch that I had was getting scratched, you know? So, like, I was in positions of responsibility where I was handling domestics, I was doing traffic stops, I was, you know, and what I want to say is, you know, in police work, to this day, I still keep the Bill of Rights up front and foremost. For example, I had a couple of people so far where, well, I had 2 or 3 people so far where, you know, they had a concealed firearms license, or no, did not have a concealed firearms license, no criminal history, and they were carrying their pistol on them in not the right legal way. One was in a vehicle, and no, 2 of them were in a vehicle, and one of them was on their person. And again, it was just basically they just didn't know, you know, and I believed that they didn't know. It's not like they were telling me they didn't know, and I was like, you know. But either way, Second Amendment, guys, and not only that, but Article 1, Section 21, Pennsylvania State Constitution basically says the right of the people to keep and bear arms in defense of themselves and the state shall not be questioned. So there's that. But there's also the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution within the Bill of Rights that states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So Pennsylvania actually has a huge protection against basically government screwing with their Second Amendment rights. So, as a police officer, you have what's called discretion out there. So just because something is illegal does not mean you have to make an arrest for it. It means that you can, but to me, an arrest has always been a huge deal. So if it's a decision between educating somebody on the right thing to do or ruining their life over bullshit, I'm going to choose education, right? So, I had two women carrying their pistols who told me, "Oh, I'm carrying, I have a gun on me. I have my pistol, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, okay, that's cool. Do you have a concealed firearms license? No. Okay, well, I'm like, how are you carrying it? This and that. So what I did is I corrected that. I'm like, listen, here's the thing in Pennsylvania, you have to have a concealed firearms license to keep a loaded pistol in your car. I said, what we can do to fix that, though, I'll send you on your way here. But to fix that, all you got to do is take your magazine out of your pistol, go ahead and lock that in your glove compartment, and take your pistol, keep it in your center console. Now they're in two separate containers. You can lock your glove compartment. Now it's in a locked container. You just have to keep them separate. I said you can carry your firearm like that anywhere in the state, completely legal. It's just when you combine the two, that's when you need to have a concealed firearms license. And not only that, but I reviewed the entire process with them. You just go to your county courts. You basically walk into the lobby and ask them about a concealed firearms license. And you fill out the thing and they approve it, and you pay $25 or whatever, and you're golden. So I had two separate situations like that where I chose education over an arrest. And then I had another guy who was carrying it in his waistband, 21-year-old, just bought the gun, some, wearing the thin blue line hat and, the typical whackers, just out there, looking for a cop to help, looking for a cop in a fight on the side of the road to jump out of his car and save the day, that type of kid. Probably had lights in his car and, all that sort of shit. So I'm like, listen, dude, listen, you can open carry that basically anywhere, but you can't conceal it. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. And they weren't doing anything else. That's the thing. If, say if somebody was robbing a bank and they were, I caught them on the street, with a bag of money and, their gun, whatever, then it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to charge that. But the violation by itself is like, okay, you're not out here brandishing it. You're obviously trying to hide it, to keep it from freaking people out. You're obviously trying to do the right thing, but you're a little jacked up. So let me fix that. So anyway, guys, that's kind of an example of how I keep the civil liberties and the Bill of Rights at the forefront of my mind. DUIs. There's another thing with DUIs. If I pull you over and you are DUI, if you didn't crash in anything, if you didn't hurt anybody, I don't give a shit. Call somebody and come and give you a ride. I'm not going to ruin your life and tie you up in legal shit just because you're driving around drunk. Yes, it is illegal, all right? But again, we have discretion, all right? A police officer does not have to arrest you for that, all right? So my thing is like, all right, we're parking your car. You're going to call somebody for a ride, and you're going to go home. And that car's not going to move until the sun comes up in the morning. Roger? Cool. But it's different, of course, if you're DUI and you crash into a parked car or you crash into somebody else or, you hit a pedestrian or whatever. Yeah, you're going to get arrested for that. All right. So I'm just kind of giving you guys some examples of how I do side with the people as often as I possibly can, every chance that I get. Because I do know other officers out there who arrest over nonsense, and it breaks my heart because it's like you're taking somebody with no criminal record and you're going to tie them up for a gram of weed? Like, what? Like, dude, in like a year or two from now, it's not even going to be like a thing, yet they're still going to have a misdemeanor on their record because you want to make numbers. Like, to me, that's just nonsense. You're taking somebody's freedom, you're locking them up, you're tying them up in the courts for nothing, So when it comes to stuff like that, guys, power to the people, all right? We the people, all the way. And, I don't mind saying this because Well, for two reasons, to be honest with you. The first reason is because we need more police officers like that. And if you're a police officer watching this, you need to know that that's a possibility. You can be that kind of cop who puts the people first, all right, and your ego and your bullshit second. And another reason that I say that is because my department knows that I'm like that, and they're cool with it, And the final reason that I'm saying that is because I found a new job that pays a lot more than being a cop. That lets me stay home more. That lets me, basically I get my work week done. 1 week is 3 days, 1 week is 4 days, 1 week is 3 days, 1 week is 4 days, and it rotates like that. It keeps going like that. And I might stretch out the cop thing as long as I possibly can. I'll basically be working 2 days a month. I'll drop down to part time. I've been full time for a long time now, but I'll do like 2 days a month. I won't change a thing about how I operate. And if that's not good enough or whatever, then I'll just turn in my badge for the people. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. I really doubt it. I love my department I work in right now. I love the town that I work in right now. But this other opportunity came up, and they are not going to have an issue with this at all. And I'm not gonna revamp PSM. I'm not gonna bring PSM back, or at least I don't plan to. But I do plan on maybe getting a little bit more politically active. I do plan on, like I said in the beginning of this video, if there's questions about, maybe creating a mutual assistance group or a militia organization or a training organization or something to that effect, I or maybe just old fans who are like, hey man, what's up? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. I have questions about this. I have questions about that. Put them in the comment section, and I will go ahead and follow up on those with a video. And I'm not going to be putting my face in these videos. Maybe later on down the line that might change, but for now, I'm not going to do it. They're gonna be podcasts with some pictures, basically just like this. Uh, yeah. So we'll see what comes down the line, guys. But yeah, if there's something maybe because I did this off the cuff, so if there's something maybe I glanced over or didn't get into as much depth as you would have liked, put that in the comments too. I'll follow up on that. Yeah. So basically, guys, yeah, I'm starting a new chapter in my life. I have different concerns nowadays than I used to, and I changed a lot. Yeah, it basically came down to I just didn't have the motivation to keep doing the PSM thing. I thought I had all the right guys in the right positions to turn it over, and maybe I just didn't do it right. Maybe I got out too soon. I got out too quickly. I maybe I cheated the guys and didn't. Maybe I don't know. I think I could have done it differently. I'm sure I could have done it differently. All the guys at the end when I finally did get out, and I didn't really get out. I went to the auxiliary force, and I was still, what's the word? I was still advising, but at a certain point, I just started hearing from the guys less and less, and yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that there's things that I regret when I got out, as far as maybe how I did it, or maybe I wasn't supportive enough. I don't know. I don't know. But it had everything. I mean, it had everything in place. We had the right guys. We had the right mindset within the organization. I don't really know to this day. To be honest with you, I don't know exactly what happened. I do not know. I just know that when I got out, I thought I had the right guys in place. I remember the Facebook got taken down. From Facebook took it down, and that messed up a lot because we had our auxiliary force on there, we had county groups in there, we had our main page obviously in there. We had a lot going on. So when that was taken down, that was like a bomb to our organization. That basically blew us the fuck open. And that mixed with me, uh, getting out, and I think at a certain point I got banned from Facebook also, so I lost contact with a lot of the guys just one on one, and because I was making Biden jokes and stuff, and obviously Facebook doesn't have a humor, doesn't have a sense of humor. Um, we're Facebook, man. We don't have a sense of humor we're aware of. So yeah, uh, yeah, I don't know, guys. And then at a certain point, I got my phone number. I changed my phone number. I didn't change my phone. I got a new phone to get back on Facebook because I was banned and I couldn't make a new Facebook because I don't know if it traced my IP or my phone number or whatever. I don't know what funny business was going on there, but I could not get back on Facebook, you know, as much as I wanted to. So I think I was off of Facebook for a year before I got a new phone and a new phone number. And then I was able to get back on. And since I got a new phone number, I think a lot of the guys that I used to be in contact with just couldn't contact me anymore or whatever. So I really don't know. There's 1,000 things that could have happened. They could have just been fed up with me and decided, screw him. I do not know. But when uh, when I when I hung it up, I thought I left it in the right hands. We had a lot of good dudes, and I don't have any ill will towards any of them, dude. I mean, there wasn't any negativity that came my way from these guys. There was maybe like one dude who was a little resentful in our chain of command, and of course we had a bunch of haters. They always existed. It was guys that weren't showing up to training, who, just got kicked out or something. Then now I'm an asshole, and just shit like that. If anybody out there is ever in a management position or they're a boss or in charge of anything, you have those guys. It's just, I don't know what it is. They quit, and then they make you into the bad guy to justify their quitting. I don't know what it is. It's ego problems. I really don't know. So a couple of those things obviously happened, but there's nothing, no ill will, man. I mean, I try and I think of the guys all the time. Especially the dudes who I dealt with the most. My, uh, I want to say my sergeants, my corporals, my private first class dudes. Um, I loved them all. It's just at a certain point, I just didn't have the motivation anymore to keep on going. And I was like, you know what? Because again, I think the cop thing just really overwhelmed me, and I think, I just, whatever I was looking for was satisfied, and I was also kind of maybe a little cautious about, you know, being in the limelight and, doing this job, and I don't know. I think it was like a perfect storm of shit. Either that or maybe the FBI or CIA or NSA shot me with a apathetic dart or something at a certain point and maybe not give it, and made me care way less to fuck it all up and make me go away. I don't know. I don't know. The Illuminati poisoned my food and made me all apathetic and shit. I don't know, guys. But so this is just kind of years later. Where have they been? Where has Staff Sergeant Michael Grove been this whole time? Well, that's where I've been. So you know, at this point, guys, it's been an hour and almost an hour 15 minutes. I can't think of anything else that I want to say at this point, guys. I'll just be going around in circles. But I hope it's nice to hear from me. I know that there's a lot of people out there who wonder, hey, where'd that dude go? Where'd that organization go? What happened to them? And so this is pretty much it. So anyway, guys, if you're out there and you want to develop an organization like the one that I had, I'd be more than happy to kind of give you pointers and some advice how to be successful in that. Like I said, I ran it for 6 years and obviously did an excellent job. And not just me, the guys, the guys I worked with the most, my immediate, uh, I don't want to even say subordinates because that's not the right word. My teammates, we all came together and made an outstanding organization. So, yeah, any kind of advice you guys are seeking, any kind of questions that you might have, throw them in the comments. And like I said, I'll follow up on them. But that's all I got for you guys today. Stay safe, stay American. And I'll talk to you guys all next time. Michael Grove, signing out.